A bizarre interrogation of a double murder suspect.
I've had 2 men die in there in 2 years.
I know that.
A detective holding the hands of a cold-blooded killer.
You watched him die, right?
A crime so gory, it defies comparison.
How did he cut him into pieces?
With a chisel.
It all started nearly 2 years earlier, deep in the woods of northern Michigan. A man disappears just before leaving for a new job.
He vanished.
Cops wonder, did he just up and go without saying goodbye?
He either killed himself or just disappeared.
Did he drown sailing on the lake?
The water was up here.
Or was he the victim of a possible serial killer?
I felt that when I started with this case.
Crime Watch Daily hits the ground with investigators combing the forest, searching for clues.
This is the spot here.
Do the fallen leaves tell the story of what happened to Chris Regan? Driving through the picturesque countryside of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, you can't help but think you're in the middle of nowhere. And you can't get much more isolated than the tiny town of Iron River.
Iron River is a small town. Unfortunately, I have to label it as kind of a depressed community with a lot of problems. A lot of crime for a small town.
But if you love the outdoors and icy cold winters like Chris Regan, Iron River is paradise. And it also didn't hurt that an old girlfriend, Terry O'Donnell, lived there.
Chris and I started dating exclusively. We had planned a future together. We were planning on living together and moving to another area.
So the next question is rather obvious.
Were you in love?
Yes. He swept me off my feet. Yeah. And I truly believe Chris loved me.
But Terry says there was just one problem.
I think he had just two sides of him.
Terry says she discovered Chris's other side when she traveled overseas.
He decided that he was going to hook up with other women while I was in England. He told me that didn't mean anything. It was just nothing.
It was just sex?
It was just sex. That had nothing to do with his love or our relationship. And I didn't understand that part.
Terry claims Chris's roving eye led to their split, but she says amazingly, they still remained friends.
We talked all the time. We messaged each other all the time.
Chris, an Air Force veteran studying for a business degree, decided to stay in Iron River and applied for a job at a local company that makes mining equipment.
He went in and spoke to them about a job, much to my surprise. That was not the plan.
So he gets a job there, and that's where he meets Kelly Cochran.
Kelly Cochran, a friendly young woman who apparently liked to swing both ways.
Did he ever talk about Kelly?
No. We never talked about anybody else that we were dating. Chris wasn't dating Kelly. I think Chris and Kelly hooked up for sex, and that was it. He never went anywhere with her. He was never seen in public with her.
Maybe that's because Chris's new girlfriend was already married.
The only place they went was his apartment. And she was not to say anything about them hooking up.
Chris rented a small apartment from Terry's parents right above their grocery store. And in the next town over, Kelly lived in this modest house with her husband, Jason. Kelly's younger brother, Colton, says they recently moved here from Merrillville, Indiana, not far from Chicago. Colton tells me he doesn't think Jason and Kelly were a good match.
Colton, you got a look on your face.
I actually said before they got married, but after they got engaged, that they shouldn't get married. They just didn't fit. He was a laid-back guy. She was more of a go-getter.
Colton says Kelly's affair with Chris wasn't her first rodeo.
Did your sister have a lot of affairs on him?
That I know of, maybe 2 or 3.
So he was jealous.
He became jealous.
But did Jason know that Kelly and Chris got together 4 or 5 times a week? Former Iron River Police Chief Laura Frizzo knows all the gossip in this town of 2,800.
Was she a married woman who was sneaking around, or did her husband know exactly what she was doing?
He had said that he had not been aware and that he didn't want to know about it. Jason was suicidal and was having emotional problems and whatnot, which again seemed to be stemming from her extramarital affairs, driving him crazy.
But what was driving Jason's love rival Chris crazy was a bum knee. Even though Chris and Terry were no longer a couple, he kept this sticky note from her reminding him about a doctor's appointment, and he penned a cute response. Terry wrote this note for me after I had knee surgery. I love her.
His job at Lakeshore was taking a toll on his knee because he was on his feet all day long at work, and so he needed a job also that wasn't so tough on his body.
So Chris found a desk job all the way across the country in Asheville, North Carolina. He gave his 2 weeks' notice at the plant where he and Kelly worked and started packing.
He texted me that he was going the next day for his physical and drug test, and he told me once he got back from that, he would get in touch with me, or we were going to go out to celebrate his new job in North Carolina.
Terry's dreams of moving with Chris to another place had melted like a spring thaw in Michigan. But did Kelly think she was the one who would be moving to Asheville with her lover?
She did make it seem like they had this lengthy romantic, affair, and in fact she even made mention that he wanted her to move with him out to North Carolina.
So on one of Chris's last nights in Iron River, there was a first. Instead of Kelly coming over to his apartment, she invited him over to her house.
She called Chris and she lured him over there for sex. Why would he go to her house if they had never before been to her house for sex?
Apparently, Kelly made an offer he couldn't refuse. I'll cook you Italian for dinner and give you my body for dessert. Next.
Did you ever see her with the lasagna?
What happens when Chris hooks up with Kelly for a night of lust and lasagna?
It was a wreck. Stuff scattered everywhere, dirty dishes all crusted in the kitchen sink, red goo in the bottom of his wine glass. The windows were open, the apartment was cool, his medication was all there. I mean, he hadn't been there, he was gone.
It's like he vanished.
He vanished.